Hi guys and welcome to Busy Waiting. In the previous video we covered the Docker installation process on Ubuntu. Now let's take a look at CentOS and see what's different. I'll be following the documentation page on docs.docker.com and you can follow this link to the CentOS specific steps like docs.docker.com/engine/install/CentOS. The installation process follows the same steps: cleanup of old installations, setting up repositories and downloading the packages. However, there are some particular things that are specific to CentOS in the post-installation configuration settings. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay up to date with our newest videos. In the next episodes I'm going to go through Docker command line interface and Docker API. We're basically going to cover how to write your own client to manage containers and images programmatically. But right now, I'm going to run the installation steps on a clean VM with CentOS 7.9. First, let's clean up any existing installations, if any. Note that this step is here to ensure that you don't have any other Docker versions installed while you install the Docker Community Edition, like having packages from the CentOS distribution instead of the Docker repositories. Second, let's add the Docker repository to yum. For that we need yum utils. And now let's add the official Docker CE repo. Now we're all set to install the Docker engine, the Docker CLI packages and the container runtime. So up until now, the steps are similar to what we have done for Ubuntu. Let's check the state of the service with systemctl status docker.service. So that's the difference. The Docker service is not started or enabled automatically on CentOS. You will need to do that by hand. So to do that, run systemctl start docker to start the service. And now let's check if it's running. You should notice that the service is active, but not enabled. That means that it will not be automatically started at startup. If you want that, then you also need to enable it by running systemctl enable docker. So again, active means the service is currently running. Enabled means that it will automatically be started on boot up. At this moment, you should be able to run the hello world container as root by running sudo docker container run hello world. But if you want to execute Docker commands as a non-root user, you need that user to be part of the Docker group. From my previous video, remember that the Docker CLI, the component that handles all Docker commands, communicates with the Docker engine via a socket. And that socket has read and write permissions only for the owner, which is the user root, and for the Docker group. You can check that by running ls-l/var/run/docker.sock. Now, here you see that the socket belongs to the user root and the group Docker. And here you can see the read-write permissions for the owner and group. So, unless you run Docker commands as root, or your user is part of the Docker group, you will get a permission denied error when the CLI tries to communicate with the engine via this socket. To add your user to the Docker group, like in my case the user is user ID, you should run sudo usermod -a G docker user ID. You need to log out and log in again for the changes to take effect. And now the commands can be executed without sudo. So, let's run the hello world container again, this time as a non-root user. So basically, to sum up, the main difference that we see between CentOS and Ubuntu installation is that the Docker service is not automatically started and enabled after the installation on CentOS, and you have to do that by hand. Also, if you want to be able to run Docker commands as a non-root user, you do need to have your user part of the Docker group. That's all for today. Please subscribe if you want to receive more updates for my Docker and Linux tutorials. See you next time.